Very good morning to everybody and welcome. We're doing a live non-farm payroll session. NFP is out in about 25 minutes. And it's happening today as opposed to on Friday because this weekend is Independence Day in the U.S. We're going to have a little bit of well, I don't know what we're going to have, to be honest. I've been seeing a lot of signs and a lot of news announcements in local areas. I think my area is where I live. I think they're going to do fireworks, and I think you're supposed to just stay at your house. So, so I guess there's going to be no big hoorahs, but that's okay. That's okay. I was going to probably stay at my house anyway. So, anyway, for those in the U.S., happy Independence Day. And tomorrow's a bank holiday, market. I think the market might be, I don't know. Is the market closed? Anyone know if the market's closed tomorrow? I think it is. I know it's a bank holiday tomorrow. And so that's why we're doing NFP a day early. And then we'll kind of just have a little bit of maybe a 3-ish day weekend, hopefully anyway. So that's what we'll be doing. But I wanted to kind of invite everyone and just say, let's look at NFP. Let's see what's going on here. Let's see how this is all playing out and any details we can throw into the mix and just kind of see how it's all going. But we've definitely got a few names and people with us that names I don't recognize, and that always makes me so happy. So happy. Good to see you guys. So tell me, everyone, where's everybody coming from this morning? So occasionally, about every 2 or 3 months, or 4 months maybe, I'll tell everyone to jump in and join us and invite a couple of non-group members into our NFP session. So I'm always happy to see names and places I don't recognize and so on. So tell us. So we know Fred's from Northern Cal, Jim also from Northern Cal. Good to see you, my man. Where's everyone else joining us from? I see. I know we've got some Aussies in here and some. Let's see. Okay, there we go. All right, Steve from Bryn Mawr. Oh, I'm just killing that. I'm sorry. Matthew from Melbourne. Good to see you, my friend. Yeah, Rondell. Good to see you. There you are. And Andy from Toronto. Okay. Daniel, Brisbane. Okay, excellent. Lester, hello. And Jacinth from Washington, D.C. and Jack out there in Minnesota. All right. Welcome, guys. Always good to see you all. Welcome, everybody. Okay, so here's a little bit of what we're looking at. So earlier this week, I sent out kind of a short video update, right? Sent out a little video update, and I said, for those that aren't in my premium groups, I talk quite a bit. Hey, Bruce from Perth, welcome. It's not even too late for you out there. Perth a little bit earlier. Good. I sent out a little video update, and I said, here's a couple things we're looking at. I posted it on the DayTraders FX website, and it's just a quick little look. It was a short video on some Forex, stocks, options, cryptos, kind of just where I see these markets at, what summer might have in store for us, a little bit of that, right? So I talked a bit about that in the short video update towards the first part of the week. And let's discuss a little tiny bit more. So what we're definitely interested in watching is as employment numbers come out, is that going to help a few things break out? We've started to see some kind of late in the week breakouts happen, and we're just curious to see if some of that's going to be able to carry on with the U.S. employment announcement. So if we look over here really quick, we can see that the dollar index is still just kind of choppy, right? We talked about this area kind of started the week here, and we said, all right, 97.70, is that gonna hang or is that not gonna hang? And it did, right? Little pullback to the moving averages, back down again. So that's played out pretty well. It definitely doesn't take us out of the range, right? So it doesn't really get us out of this range here. Find my little drawing tools. It doesn't really get us out of that range there, right? We're still in kind of this early June sideways chop type stuff. So we've got to get, I think we've got to get out of that. You know, we start getting, you know, below 96.50, or we start getting back above 97.70. And I think that ignites some of the movement. So I'd be pretty interested to see if we can get a little bit of that going with maybe some NFP news today, right? Is it going to be good enough that, you know, we start to see some bigger movements like that, and we start to see some you know, some breakout activity, some movement that can hopefully really pick up some momentum and get going. So I'm pretty curious about that. I want to see how that plays out, and I'll be watching that. We'll be watching futures as well. We'll see if there's going to be any you know, any activity in the futures markets, right? We talked about this. I talked about this in that video. Everyone have a chance to see the video? Everyone see that video? I talked about the futures markets in the video here, and just said, you know, we're looking for that, right? We're looking for just some sort of breakout here, and we're starting to see that breakout happen a little bit to the upside, right? So this is starting to give us a little bit of a push. There we go. Hold on here. So we're starting to get a little bit of activity right there, right? Starting to break out just a hair. We're going to see how that's going to translate over to, you know, what we see in some yen pairs, what we see in some Swiss franc pairs, what we see in some other kind of risk on, risk off type currency movement. So we know if the stock market's doing well, typically we're going to see some yen weakness. Probably we're going to see a little bit of Swiss franc weakness, and we may see further, you know, Aussie strength. Right now, what we're seeing a bit of is New Zealand strength, right? So, Bo, going back to your comment here about the Aussie New Zealand, yeah, this thing started to move and started to kind of rock and roll the last, you know, several hours, about the last 12 hours, right? This has been pretty stuck, you know, doing not a whole lot. And then, lo and behold, the last several hours, this thing breaks out and makes a move for it. And it's not because we're seeing any particular amount of Aussie weakness, because we're not. The Aussie is still stuck sideways. Aussie CAD, which we have a trade on, has just been the most sideways thing I've ever seen. Aussie Swiss, I mean, look at this thing. It's just sideways city. Aussie yen, and so on. And then we've all of a sudden we get this we get this Aussie New Zealand making a big push. All the rest of the Aussie pairs are just kind of, you know, slow and steady and just grinding their way through. But it's the New Zealand pairs that have started to move, right? So that's where I'm thinking we're getting a little bit of a push here. You know, New Zealand's been pretty sideways, and we're getting a little bit of a push on some of these New Zealand pairs now. Markets seem to be like they're still going to be able to hold that risk on type movement. We'll see how it plays out. But you know, SPY is scheduled to open a little bit up as well. And we can see that in the futures markets, right? We're seeing a little bit of a push, a little bit of a run higher there. Andrew, my friend, good morning. Good to see you. Another Northern Cal person. We got a lot of Northern Cal people with us this morning. Good morning, Andrew. So so that's kind of what we're seeing, right? We're starting to see that VIX finally making a little bit of a push below the 30s again, and that's looking pretty good. SPY is kind of hanging in there. You know, dollar index, you know, maybe it's going to continue breaking out and getting kind of out of this channel. So these are some of the levels that we want to watch, some of the things that we want to watch as we see where the markets are going this morning. Vince, good morning. Good morning from Australia. Good evening to you. Nice to see you. So these are a couple of things that I am interested in watching to see what happens and where these all go as we head into the employment numbers, right? Into kind of those movements there with everything. Oh, in St. Augustine on vacation. That's great. That's excellent. Where is St. Augustine? Is that like? Is that where they play the Masters? No, it's Augusta. Never mind. What am I saying? I don't know. Where's some St. Augustine? Give me the scoop. Sounds lovely. So while we watch these kind of movements play out and all these things happen, NFP should be a little bit of a catalyst here, right? So we've seen some pretty wild numbers. Obviously, with coronavirus stuff, we saw some really hugely negative numbers. And now we're starting to see some like really ridiculous positive numbers, right? If we go back and look at the history a little bit here, so like this guy right there, we can see that we've had, where's our other historical chart? That's one of them. But so we've had some really intensely bad numbers, and then we've had some really surprisingly good numbers, right? So if we look at what's the forecast here, right? 3 million jobs. Last month, there was an expectation of really bad numbers, and all of a sudden we get these really good numbers. We're expecting more good numbers, right? Unemployment numbers are expected to, improve from 13.3% back to 12, and kind of just, overall clawing our way back from all the job loss that happened in the, in the sell-off and the shutdown of the, coronavirus stuff. So anyway, that's a little bit of what we're looking for. We're going to see, the things I think that would surprise the market a good little bit would be some bad employment numbers again, right? Like, okay, we're back at this. We're seeing some bad stuff. So if we had some bad employment numbers, I could see some of that taking effect for sure. I could also see, oops, there we go. Okay, I could also see having, just as expected, kind of leaves this open to, whatever the market's feeling today. And it looks like everything is looking fairly bullish still, fairly, risk on. We've looked at the futures, and those are making a bit of a breakout. We're seeing the S&P futures breaking out. We're seeing, SPY looking to open up a little bit. We're seeing VIX down a little bit. So we'll see how that plays out. Doesn't change the fact that, some of these currency pairs that we have been talking about and looking at and so on are definitely getting overextended, right? And that's where I'm going to pay close attention to, if we start to get that yen strength really sneaking in there, right? Australian dollar has stayed strong and is holding, pretty steady there. But I'm going to start watching things like, okay, is Aussie yen starting to kind of creep down, right? We talked about this as a possibility, getting that Aussie yen back up towards, maybe up towards a double top. Maybe it happens, maybe it doesn't happen. But I think if it does, that really is going to put the pressure on some corrective movement here. So I'm going to be really watching yen pairs to see if we start to get some creeping yen strength, right? The CAD's pretty weak. This made a stab at the monthly pivot, couldn't get there. We're coming back down. So I'm just going to be watching those yen, and if we start to get a flow into the yen, that will make me pretty cautious and pretty curious about, the next stage of the market. But right now, the yen's a little bit on the flat to weak side. It's kind of just, going with the flow here, and not really pushing too hard one way or another. So we're going to see how that all plays out. And then, of course, we'll be watching Swiss franc as well, right? We're going to watch things like Euro Swiss, right? If we start to see some real strong Swiss franc pushing, then that's also going to make me a little bit cautious about the market. If we see Euro Swiss starting to drop, we see of all the Aussie pairs besides the New Zealand, the rest of the Aussie pairs are kind of holding pretty strong, and Aussie Swiss is slowly starting to come off these levels, right? Really slowly, but it's starting to come off of these highs. It's starting to give us little tiny breakouts. Aussie Swiss is looking to be a little bit bearish, and I'm just going to watch those Swiss pairs, right? CAD Swiss coming down pretty hard. We got a lot of CAD weakness. Euro Swiss, we've got Pound Swiss. I'm just going to be watching these guys and looking to see if we're seeing, that push on the Swiss franc, because if the yen is strengthening and the Swiss franc is strengthening, then that's going to give us some really early signs of the market is not is not really liking what's going on, right? The overall market. I think that, I mean, I'm pretty confident at this point that the currency market is going to be ahead of the stock market, right? As far as if we start seeing that push towards yen weakness, we start to see that push towards Swiss franc or sorry, yen strength and Swiss franc strength. Those are going to be early signs that the stock market is entering a little bit of a corrective state. So that'll be super important to watch very closely. Andrew, cool. Okay, oldest city in northern Florida. I gotcha. That looks cool. That sounds great. And Andrew, do we have any pairs at extremes? Well, I'm going to say, Andrew, in a trade that we have going in the trade group right now, I'm going to say the pound Aussie is at an extreme. It's at a pretty major extreme, and we have a trade. And in fact, we have a trade with the robot. I gave some manual parameters, but our robot is cranking away. We've had some good trades with the robot this week. Remember, that's our automated trading software here. But we've had some good trades with that over the last little bit, and we've got the robot running on the pound Aussie because I think the pound Aussie is quite overextended. And we're only in profit maybe a little over 30 pips right now on this one, but I'm going to let this run because this is a sign of overextension, right? We've had this long channel that takes us back to the highs of early April. So keep in mind a channel in a currency that goes for, I mean, what is April? That's 3 solid months, right? The pound Aussie has been in this descending channel for 3 solid months. And of course, you know, we saw this kind of peak out. The Australian dollar just got killed with coronavirus sell-off, but then it reversed like crazy, right? And the Australian dollar has been showing strength since very early April till now, and we're starting to see things slow down, and the pound Aussie is one of these turning early kind of pairs. We have 3 consecutive missed monthly pivots. We have a high bar count for those that understand kind of the 15-minute and the scanner trade. And we're breaking out of a channel. So this is a great currency at an extreme that probably has, I mean, our trade, we're going to be looking for a bare minimum. The great thing about the robot is we're just going to let this run with the robot. We're going to let it trail our stops, and we're going to just kind of let the robot do its business. But the great thing about this is if this trend starts from this kind of 180 area, I think that this has a great chance of moving up into kind of 185, 186 and higher. I wouldn't be surprised to see the pound Aussie up at 190 sooner than later. And our robot's just going to handle that. It's just going to, you know, we have to know when to put it on. We have to know how to manage the situation. But if we catch a trend, like I think the pound Aussie is going to be, because of how extreme this setup is, and the robot should just be able to carry this through and get us in and out a couple of times, you know, on a 500 to 800 pip move. And we should be able to get several hundred of those pips on the way up. So it's pretty awesome. So pound Aussie is probably one of the most extreme pairs that I'm seeing right now, as well as some of the other Aussie pairs. I'm struggling because I look at all these Aussie pairs and I'm saying I'm trying to follow the flow of the chart a little bit, but Aussie pairs are so extremely overextended. And the Aussie New Zealand was kind of the first one to, you know, break and make the run. Pound Aussie starting to break and make that run. And I'm looking for some of these other Aussie pairs, Aussie dollar, Aussie CAD, Aussie yen, you know, to just break and make that move. So Aussie pairs are at fairly intense extremes, but they could push a little bit more. But I'm pretty ready to rock and roll with pound Aussie, pretty ready to rock and roll with Aussie New Zealand. So yeah, good stuff. Good stuff is in the works. Okay, guys, so those are some of the setups. Questions, comments in the next couple of minutes. We're about to go into this little situation here. We're gonna, I mean, I just feel like the name of the game lately has been extreme everything, right? You know, it's interesting, Andrew, you bring up extremes because everything's just extreme. You know, I mean, we're seeing really overbought and oversold currency pairs. We're seeing the stock market run to extremes. We're seeing we're seeing these U.S. employment numbers run to extremes. I mean, they're just going nuts, right? All of a sudden, we're seeing, you know, millions of jobs lost during NFP, millions of jobs gained during NFP, you know, and typically we're dealing with, hey, you know, 200,000 jobs back, you know, 300,000, and it's just, you know, everything's just kind of movement and numbers and levels on steroids, pretty much. It's pretty intense. So yes. Other thoughts, other questions. Good to see all you folks with us today. We're gonna see, you know, we're gonna see if we can get a little bit of activity running here. Yeah, I'm good to see you, my man. It's been a while. Welcome, and Stan. Hello, Sim. Good to see you. Okay, good guys. So a couple of things that we want to look for and watch for is the fact that that I think with these extremes, hopefully we're going to help some of these currency pairs come off of these extremes. All right. Yes. So a little bit about the robot. And I hope I'm not saying your name too wrong. Gisanth, is that somewhere in the right realm there? Nice to have you with us. Welcome from Washington, D.C., nonetheless. Great spot. So what the robot is, in our trade group, so I have two trade groups, right? And you can find out about, you know, what the trade groups offer. There isn't open enrollment, but you can get on waiting list, have a call with me, and get involved with these groups. So you can go to DayTraders FX and click on the products, and that'll tell you kind of about our premium annual group and our premium trading group with the annual membership, or the scanner group. And what the robot is made for is to kind of complement some of the trend trades that we look for in those groups, right? So those groups tend to look for, you know, these kinds of movements, right? These kinds of ultra extreme, very overextended movements. And then we start trading this kind of stuff, right? So that's why we already have a trade going on. But we do have a trade going on with the robot. But what the robot is intended to help us do a bit more is catch these trends, right? Because sometimes it's, you know, it's really easy to look back and say, wow, what an amazing, wonderful trend. But sometimes trends are much harder to catch because we're in the middle of stuff, right? We're kind of in the middle of this. Well, I'm not at the all-time high and I'm not at the all-time low. And where's this thing going to move? Well, let me wait for this to really get to a super extended level before I start, you know, trading the new trend. And the robot's just a great tool that once we do some good market analysis and some good chart analysis, then we can put the robot on and it will manage trades for us. It'll get us into trends overnight. I mean, you know, out there in Washington, D.C., you know, Eastern time, a lot of movements happening at 3 and 4 o'clock in the morning, right? And that's hard to catch. I'm further west, and you know, a lot of movements happening at 1 a.m., 2 a.m., midnight. So the robot does a really good job at catching those trends that, especially that are starting and that are carrying on during the London markets and during some of those European market hours when we'd normally be sleeping. But it does some really great stuff. It takes entries. You know, we've got to tell it which direction to go and you know, sizes to trade and stop losses to have, but it's got a lot of great settings for all of that. So it's a pending order on steroids. It picks up some really good trends using a series of moving averages. So it's looking at moving averages to take entries for us. Now the robot on its own is, you know, everyone go have a look at the webinar, right? Go have a look at the webinar and you can kind of see what we're trying to do with the robot, how it works, all the things that should happen. But as the robot stands right now, it's kind of made to complement our trading style in one of the two live trade groups that we have. And so without it, the robot, you know, it requires analysis. This isn't a robot that's intended to just pick up, you know, you just turn it on, don't need to know anything about the market. It's intended to go with some good market analysis. So I encourage everybody in our trade groups to have it. Without the trade group, I'm looking for, you know, I'll be creating more of a course in the coming weeks that will talk a little bit more about the strategy of the robot and how that can be used on its own without one of my trade groups. But it's great to be in one of the groups, have the robot, and let some of the trades crank. We grabbed a nice pound Swiss trade this week. We got some profit on the pound Aussie, and it's just really awesome to grab some of those overnight profits in the group with the robot. So a little bit more about that. Let's see how really quick how our numbers are looking with employment details here. How is the dollar liking it? What kind of reaction are we getting and seeing? If any, a little bit, not a lot, not a lot. Let's just see here. Yes, Andrew, you sure can. Yep. The robot can be set because we kind of we put the parameters in there as to what we want. You know, if we want it to be a short-term trade, a long-term trade, all those parameters can be set to have that happen. Woo! Look at that. Look at that. And Andrew, just in case you don't have it there, and whoever else, there's the robot link. So we've got some pretty big numbers here. 4.8 million jobs. Unemployment rate improves by over 2%. How's our average hourly earnings looking? A little bit worse. So people are kind of back to making a little bit less money. But the employment situation has taken a big, huge step, you know, up. So how are the markets liking that? What's everything kind of, you know, thinking with that news? SPY futures or SPY pre-market is definitely up. We can see probably we'll see regular S&P futures up a bit as well. So away we go. Yeah, I mean, Rondell, it's surprising a little bit, and then again, it's kind of not because, you know, people are going back to work, right? Everything, the economy is really reopening, and we're getting a lot of, you know, furloughed or laid off or just outright, you know, out of business kind of companies and workers and so on. You know, the demand's getting back up again. It's kind of interesting, you know. I went to Costco last night, and again had to wear my mask, and maybe, you know, I'm the worst person to ask or talk about all this stuff, but I know I don't watch any news, by the way. I only watch market news, anything that's related to the market, but I have no interest in any other news. I don't know anything that's going on politically, any of that stuff. I take all my news from the market, right? And I look at this and I think, okay, here's the movements, here's what we're seeing. And it's like coronavirus is starting to seem like it's so far in our rearview mirror, right? I mean, it's so far out there and it's so far back. And I think the economy is kind of, or excuse me, the markets are kind of looking at it a little bit like that as well. You know, is there going to be a resurgence? We've had all these record numbers of cases the last, you know, couple of weeks, and the market just marches forward. And so I think it's becoming, and we've talked about this a bit, right, over the last month or two, that kind of the market has started to become numb, or just it's completely over looking at the bad news and is only looking kind of in the forward movement. So I don't know. We'll see how that all plays out, but definitely some big numbers, and some, you know, some big improvements there on that side of things. Andrews, less stimulus from the Fed. No, I don't think the Fed is going to slow the stimulus down. I think they're looking at this as, and I think it's pretty safe to say that so much of this recovery and the speed of this recovery is because the Fed has been pounding hard at all of that. So I don't think the Fed's going to slow down too soon, because the first signs of the Fed slowing down could, you know, the market's not 100% stable. It's not 100% on its own 2 feet at the moment. So I think the Fed will slowly, you know, pull back stimulus, slowly pull back all of its, you know, measures for, you know, getting the market, the economy back on its feet. So I don't think that's going to happen too quickly. Aussie dollar going against the news. Yeah, well, we're getting a little bit of a push, James. Yeah, a little bit of a push. Is it going the wrong way? I don't know. What is the right way, you know? But remember, James, what we're seeing here is so with the news, the dollar index is a little bit um, showing a little bit of weakness, right? And so as the dollar index is showing some of that weakness, the Australian dollar is actually, kind of doing it's doing what we would expect, right? We have a little bit of Aussie strength and we have a little bit of dollar weakness, and it's doing pretty well. So remember, with the economy doing well, the Australian dollar will do fairly good. The Australian dollar is a risk on type currency. And so if the stock market's cranking, the Australian dollar is usually doing decent. And right now we're seeing a little bit of that, dollar weakness. Hey, the stock market's doing great. Why are we going to be in low yielding things like the dollar, that type of deal. So yeah, I think it's kind of doing a little bit of what we would expect. But here is the thing though, and here's what I want everyone to kind of remember, is that, hold on, I'm gonna leave you with a cliffhanger for 1 second. Give me 2 seconds. Okay. Um, the thing to remember is that um, NFP is infamous, right? Probably more than any news announcement. NFP is that one that really kind of, uh, if there's any kind of push, any kind of movement, it's the big reversal news announcement, right? So if we get a positive run, we start to see, a bullish rally on whatever, bearish move on whatever. NFP is so infamous for reversing that within an hour or so. So I'm actually a little bit happy to see the Australian dollar moving up just a little bit and see the US dollar moving down just a little bit. Because I would say chances are super good that we're going to see a big reversal of that at some point this morning, where we see the Australian dollar start to break out, right? Because honestly, I don't know why this happens, and I just have watched it happen for, 15, 16 years, whatever it's been, where we see that, okay, here's that movement, right? Australian dollar's going up, 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 up. I will be absolutely zero surprised to see the Australian dollar break out to the downside today. So we'll just kind of hang in there and give it a chance to move. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm kind of counting on those to break out to the downside. I mean, I'd like to see the Australian dollar break out down anyway, because I think it's pretty overbought. But NFP can be a really good catalyst for that, because whatever movement we see is so often reversed within a couple of hours. iPhone, I think that's Fred, right? Is that you, Fred? Is there a fee, one-time fee? Do you have a renew, or is it a monthly fee? So the robot is just a one-time fee, right? It's just a one-time fee. You just buy it once, and that's it. But again, the robot on its own, you need to have a good feel for what is going on with the market, and have a good feel for, identifying trends and identifying, a movement that has the potential of, hundreds of pips to go, kind of a thing. So the robot's easy to use, and there's a one-time fee, but definitely the market analysis is a big part of that. And that's why I, kind of strongly recommend watching that in the trade groups. Okay, so there's a little bit of what we're seeing here. So I'm going to be pretty cautious. I'm going to be pretty curious to see where everything goes this morning, and we'll just kind of be watching these guys. We'll be looking for opportunities. We want this crazy pound Aussie to keep it on, and make its way up to that monthly pivot. That looks like a great trade for anybody that's just kind of looking for a trade to grab. Any dips, you know, we're in some profit on this pound Aussie, but any dips should be good to buy on the pound Aussie for a move up into at least 81.25. 181.25 looks awesome. So so that's a little bit of what we're looking for. I'm really curious. I'm really interested to see where Aussie pairs go this morning, and I'm very interested to see how New Zealand pairs play out, because New Zealand pairs are getting you know, are having a pretty nice little breakout here, right? New Zealand Swiss making a run. New Zealand yen, you know, breaking out of that channel. New Zealand dollar. Kind of running back towards these highs. We don't have a lot of dollar movement there, but New Zealand seems to be going pretty good against some of these pairs. So probably we'll put the robot on this, and I'll be talking about that in the trade groups, obviously. But I think the robot could be pretty good on some of these New Zealand pairs. We're going to be looking for some of those opportunities in the coming, you know, several hours, kind of a thing. I'll be looking for any kind of pullbacks here to, you know, to get the robot going, get some manual trades going as well. I think it's going to be awesome. So, so I'm going to be watching Aussie pairs to see if those, you know, are if those are going to break higher, or if those are ready to kind of, you know, sell off and start heading down. We're going to be watching some New Zealand pairs for a little bit of pullback and some opportunity to continue trading those up. And then we're going to be watching really closely Swiss franc and yen pairs to see if, you know, are we starting to switch in risk, or is it staying risk on for the moment? If markets are risk on, we're likely to see yen and Swiss franc weakness. But those two currencies are the best ones to watch for that risk sentiment shifting from risk on to risk off. Right now, it's a little bit on the risk on side. We've got some great targets down below on a lot of these currency pairs, but we'll just patiently wait and look for, you know, look for confirmation, look for ways and reasons and so on to just kind of get some good movement here. So that's a little bit what we're looking for, but overall pretty slow. You know, NFP was expected to be really good. It was, and we've seen very little movement on the dollar. You know, yen is staying pretty steady. Dollar yen is just kind of hanging in there, very, very steady like. S&P futures are up a little bit. That's probably where we're seeing the most of the movement right there, is a little bump up on S&P futures. And so, yeah, so that's kind of where we're going to be watching things and trading things. I'll have more analysis and some additional trade ideas in the group later this morning, but I wanted to see if we could get a, you know, good little bit of movement in the market with the news, and looks pretty slow and steady. So positive for U.S. stocks. The rest of the currencies are kind of just slowly hanging in there. And I like those Aussie. I like those Swiss franc, yen, New Zealand pairs. We've obviously got an Aussie trade going on here with the pound. So a lot of good things in the works. So we'll keep an eye on that. Like I said, be very careful and cautious this morning as we go into, number one, a bank holiday tomorrow in the U.S. So U.S. markets, I'm pretty sure U.S. markets are closed tomorrow. I know banks are. So that's thing number one. And thing number two is NFP is a big reverser. It loves to reverse everything. So let's just be very cautious and see where some of these Aussie pairs are going to go that have kind of bumped up a little bit, and they're kind of, you know, running out of steam. Let's see if those can turn out to be some nice reversal trades for us as some of these Aussie pairs are trading around these extremes. So that's what I'm going to be looking for this morning, guys. I'll keep an eye on all of that. I want you guys to watch some of that. If you have any questions, for those that are in the groups, hit me up in the chat. I'll be there all morning looking for everything. That for those that aren't, head over to DayTraders FX. You know, like I said, you can have a peek at the video update, some of the things that we've talked about. You can see some of the products offered there as far as our trade groups go under the product page. And anybody interested in the robot, you can have a look at that there. But again, it's really just for, you know, to go along with some analysis of what we're doing in the trade groups. But I won't stop you from buying it. I'm just saying there is there's kind of a process that works best with that robot, and it's pretty much you know, seeing the analysis in the trade group and then putting the robot onto those trades, and it's been pretty awesome. Okay, guys, I think that's it for me for the moment. I'm going to keep an eye on the charts for the next, well, for all morning, but I'll have some details posted for group members shortly, and we'll see where everything goes, but should be interesting. We have some good stuff in the works, so looking forward to it. Thanks, everybody. Lovely to see you all. Always good to have all you guys with us, and nice to see all of our Aussie friends as well. Oftentimes we're on in the middle of the night for you guys, so always good to see you. Take care, everybody. Have a wonderful morning, afternoon, evening, and updates and details are coming. Thanks, guys. Take care, everybody.